Welcome back to Call Me By Your Game, the podcast where I, your host, Connor McCabe, bring on a guest to hear from them about a meaningful or memorable video game from a particular moment in their life. On the show, we get into as much about what made playing that particular game special as we will get into the context of how and when this game made its impact on our guest. A little bit of housekeeping up top is that anything that my guest or I plug on today's episode, you can find in the show notes. So whether you're listening on your favorite podcast catcher, like Spotify, I sort of paused like I was doing that for an editing point to insert one wherever, but it doesn't matter. Or you're watching on YouTube. Figured I'd just keep the pattern there. If you scroll down, you'll see in the show notes there's links to whatever we have, whether it's for a freaking sick-ass band or another podcast, whatever we have. If you want to follow us and support us there, there's plenty of links. So check us out there. That'll do it for the housekeeping. And I'll finally introduce my guest for today's episode. So please welcome comedian and musician Cory Webster.
Hello.
Cory, welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad to have you on the show today. This is not something I ever ask my guests, but you had to have done at least one, if not multiple podcasts in your life. I mean, we live in a community of people who get bored and make them.
I've done a few. I have also been dying to do this one for years.
Hell yeah. It's an exercise in delayed gratification is, I guess, what we'll call it today. That's how I'll frame it.
I am very happy to be here. And I still, even when you ask me, I'm just like, what game do I do?
Yeah. Yes. It's a tough choice because, like, plenty of people, you may be someone who falls into this category, have, like, multiple games that are both special, but also have, like, kind of a memorable context to share. Mm-hmm. Very early on in this podcast history, I started threatening to bring guests back because people would be like, hey, if you ever want me back, like, I could talk about this too. And so we kind of finally started doing that. But Cory, you're here today. Yes. I'm really pumped to have you on. I know you how I know, almost every guest on the show. You're an incredible improviser and comedian, and I know you through the UCB sort of indie scene community. I don't remember specifically meeting you because I'm sure I'm almost positive you're someone who, like, I was watching perform before I met you. I've been eyeing you for a while is what I'm saying.
I mean, same. We were both around a lot.
Yes.
And there's so many people that it's impossible to know the moment you met someone unless you ended up like on stage with them for the first time that you saw them, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure there's many teams that you were on at the time, but of course, the most memorable one for me for the longest time was Dick Cannon. Your amazing 3-person team with Jimmy and Amanda. I would say as early as like 2017, I could have even seen you perform in 2016, but I don't know when you started.
I do think it was 2017.
Okay, cool.
I think I maybe started taking classes towards the end of 2016.
Yeah.
But I probably was not on a stage besides like a class show until 2017. But even then it was like that was Dick Cannon. Dick Cannon has lasted the entire time. Yes.
Well, okay. We don't have to get into this, but now I'm curious, and I want the exclusive. This is going to be a Cory exclusive. I'm sure you talk about it outside of this, I'm sure. How did Dick Cannon form?
It was Improv 201.
Okay. Who was the instructor?
This was David Barton Harris, I believe.
I don't know who that is.
I don't think he's around anymore.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. But yeah, we that class just hung out after every class.
Sure.
And then when it was ending, we all knew each other pretty well. But me and Amanda had been talking because she had come into that class. She had been doing improv for years. Oh, wow. So she knew everything. She was like, hey, come to this place called the Clubhouse. And I was like, okay. And so some of us would go. And the group of us that were really into it, when the class ended, we're like, let's start a team. Yeah. And there were 5 of us. And then me, Amanda, and Jimmy were just more into it. And the other 2 both were just like, I don't want to hold you back. I'm going to drop from this team because you guys are constantly doing stuff and I'm missing things.
Sure.
And okay.
Yeah.
Dang. And it's continued.
That's amazing. I mean, truly, not just a great improv team, but you're also a great sketch comedy team too. So like, I don't know if you have any shows coming up, but if anyone gets a chance to see Dick Cannon perform, please take that opportunity because they're great.
Yeah, we're still around. We have some improv, but our goal right now is to write a new sketch show. So hopefully sometime in the next year.
Ooh, that's
maybe
so
sooner.
exciting. Now that's what I call an exclusive. See, that's why I ask you about this stuff to get the juice. Cory, that's so cool. So that's like kind of how like I first knew you. I definitely got to know you better though once you and Meg started dating. Meg Jo, I don't know what episode number she was a guest on. I believe it was within the first like 2 or 3 years, maybe the first 2 years of the show. I don't know if you remember this. She talked about the Settlers of Catan mobile game.
Yes, I do. No, I definitely remember that. She doesn't play that as much now, but she does have a new mobile game that if you want to have her back, I'm sure she could talk about it.
What's it called?
It is called, oh my God. I mean, I play it too. She got me into it. It's Royal Match.
Royal Match. Okay. Yeah. Is it also like a card-based board game or totally different?
No, it is not a card-based. It's like a match up things and they disappear and type game.
This genuinely sounds like a game I see like YouTube advertisements for all the time, and I think it's fake, but this sounds like that.
The thing is, there are advertisements for it, but it is not what the game looks like at all.
Okay.
So it is one of the games where you look and you're just like, this doesn't feel real.
Yes.
And it's kind of not, but the game exists as a totally different game than what's advertised.
Yeah. Gosh, that's so funny. Well, I'll keep that in mind for Meg, but anyway, I just remember like once you guys started dating, I got to see you more and get to know you a lot better over the years. You two got married last year. I'm kind of giving more of a biography than I needed to, but Cory, outside of the stuff that I've already sort of like kind of led you into about yourself, what do you want to tell the listener about yourself? Both who you are, is there anything you've been up to that you want people to know about? The floor is yours.
I mean, I do also I play music. Primarily started drumming, and me and my best friend since middle school, we've known each other, Brian. We have a 2-person band called DeNiro Face.
Yes,
we recorded an EP the weekend before the lockdown in 2020. And so that kind of put a damper on releasing that and playing live shows after. But we still are meeting up and recording stuff. We have a ton of new songs. We just need to record them now.
Cool.
So, I mean, again, hopefully within the next year, there's a new album, there's a new sketch show. And then I've been recently, over the past almost year, putting out like some comedic and also kind of informational songs about different athletes on TikTok and Instagram.
They are so good. It's like truly, Cory, it feels like it's content just geared towards me. It's like perfectly hits my Venn diagram.
That's good, because that's how I feel about making it. I'm like, I don't know who wants to hear this, but I like it.
Yeah, it's so good. Well, what's your TikTok handle so people can find it?
Man, let me look it up. I think it's just my name, but
Probably
there might be
Cory Webster.
A dash or a dot in there or something. It is, Cory.Webster.
Awesome. I'll for sure put a link to that in there because I think people who are fans of this show would also love that. I've inundated them with, I've forced them to listen to too many episodes about sports video games over the years. So they're primed and ready for it.
I will say I really thought about coming in here with a baseball game, and I've looked back on all of the shows you've done. I'm like, I can't do another baseball game. I'm like, I can't find anything interesting about baseball games that you haven't already covered.
That's so funny. If you were to, and I don't remember if you had pitched this as an option earlier, but if you were to bring on a baseball game to discuss, what would it have been?
Man, I mean, I feel like I haven't played a baseball game in so long, but when I was younger, I think I was a big just like MLB, like 99, 2000, like just that time. I know as a kid there was a game for Sega, and I don't remember exactly what the name of it is, but I can like picture it in my head. And I know it wasn't a game from 1989. but I used to be like, you could use teams from different years.
Oh,
and
okay,
the
sure.
1989 like Oakland A's was like the team I would pick.
Interesting. There's got to be a word for that phenomenon where you can think of like a game or a movie, but you just can't pinpoint it. There's
no idea.
got to be a word out there.
And it's not easy with sports games. There's just so many.
Yes.
It's just like, you can't look up 1989 baseball game. There's
15.
a ton.
Yeah. I love that. You know, I think of you when it comes to sports for a lot of reasons. You're a soccer player. Like, we've been on a baseball field together. Mm-hmm. Of course, your TikToks. But one other thing I wanted to point out, which just to make sure it's said on this podcast, because you're here, I'm here, and this is about video games, is that your band DeNiro Face not only did an original song for a video game that I'm writing and working on with some friends, but you're also characters in this video game.
That is true. Which the character part was incredible. It's so cool to see.
I love that it's exciting for you. It's so much fun. We're still working on it. Like we're not sure when it's gonna finish. We're hoping. We haven't said this, but hopefully by the end of the year we can throw a little party to show it off. But it's so fun. It's so funny. I think you're gonna love it when you see it in its finished form. But I had to say that on this episode because I don't want to look back or when that thing comes out and be like, Connor didn't mention it. So like that's what I was doing right now, Cory.
Yeah. No, it's also played a little bit of that game. Very fun.
Yeah. There's more to it too. There's more wrinkles that we've added and a whole heap of surprises. But for anyone, I've mentioned this only a couple times on the show because it's not, on like an eve of release. I don't really mention it, but Send in the Clown is the video game that me and a couple other former guests are working on. So, Cory, I've made you talk a lot about yourself. Is there anything else you didn't get to say that you are desperate to?
I mean, I don't think so. That's kind of the gist of everything that I have going on.
All right, killer. Well, before we get into your general history with video games in this first half of the show, will you please introduce what you've brought on for the main event today and call me by your game?
The game that I brought today is, in my opinion, at least from my experience, the best fighting game of all time, which is Tekken 3.
Hell yeah. Can't wait to get into this. And I'll say, Cory, I've seen it on a lot of lists. It's on a lot of best fighting game lists, so you're in good company. Great. Well, I can't wait to talk to you about that more in the second half of the show. But let's get into your general history with games. Do you remember some of the earliest memories you have, whether it's playing or watching?
Oh, I mean, I grew up as like I want to say 3 or 4 year old when I was just standing. There are home videos of me somewhere just playing Duck Hunt in my parents' bedroom. So like we grew up playing video games. Like I would like it was like like Duck Hunt. It was Mario, and then as soon as like I could start buying games, I would get like Donkey Kong. Paperboy, another game that I love that like I think kind of was forgotten with time, for not like fully, but like I'm sure a lot of people now, if they didn't grow up then, don't know what Paperboy is.
Especially because it's a franchise that, I mean, it may have had some sequels, but I'm almost sure that they don't make new Paperboy games nowadays.
No, I don't think so. I don't know if anybody would want to play Paperboy now.
It's kind of like, it's so funny to think about that because I played that I never owned it, but I also was an NES kid, and I think my cousins or grandparents had this when we would visit them in St. Louis, and it's, now that I'm thinking about it too much, but it's almost the opposite of like a rail shooter where you're like for example, Star Fox, you're on rails going through a level and you're shooting moving targets. Like Paperboy is kind of like that, except you're really just timing your button press to hit a mailbox with a paper.
Yes.
And hope there's something in common there.
Yeah. But yeah, it was like a lot of that. And then when I could like buy my own system, or at least tell my parents the system that I wanted.
Yeah.
I was a PlayStation kid.
Ooh.
So it was a lot of, that's when it was like Tekken, baseball games.
Yes.
I always had a baseball game. And then I don't remember a lot of other PlayStation games besides that. And then like once GameCube came out, I was like, I had all the like gaming magazines.
Oh hell yeah! So we're talking
it was like
Nintendo Power.
Nintendo Power.
There was Game Informer. Did you ever have that?
Yes, Game Informer.
Which, Corey, I'm going to use this as a moment to break some news. About almost 2 weeks ago, GameStop closed Game Informer abruptly, so there will be no more Game Informer moving forward.
I didn't even know GameStop owned Game Informer.
Yeah, like it's one of those things when someone might tell you, be like, "Oh, I guess that makes sense," but you wouldn't have ever guessed. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to slow down really quick, because I want to get a couple of facts dialed in for my old brain here. I know that you're a Southern California kid. Did you also grow up in Long Beach? I know you've lived there before.
No, I grew up in Redlands, which is like Inland Empire. Not a ton to do.
Yeah.
So video games were great.
Okay, cool. So more so Redlands. I think that genuinely was in my head. I wasn't confident. And then, are you an only child? Were you playing with? Was this like a familial like interest, or was it just you?
It was. I have a younger sister and an older sister.
Okay.
We all played video games. I was definitely the most into it.
Sure.
I could convince my older sister to play more video games than my younger sister. So we played a lot of games together. I texted her today because I was
cool.
like, what video game memories do you have? And she was like, the games that I remember are Sonic, which Sonic was like my first love of video games.
Oh, wow. The Sega Genesis Sonic?
Yeah, Sega Genesis Sonic was like the first one where I was like, this is incredible. But then like Crash Bandicoot.
Ooh.
There was a Toy Story game.
Yes.
That we both like vividly remember playing.
Yes. It's like, they're kind of pseudo 3D models, but it's a side scroller.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
And what I remember the most is like you have to cross the street, but you're hiding under a cone. And that's like mostly what I remember from that game.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like that DDR. Never got anybody to play baseball games with me, so that was just mine.
Baseball games just are like meant to be a solitary experience. It feels like.
And I was doing like career mode. I was like a 7-year-old playing 162 games on like by myself. So I was like, I didn't need anybody else to play baseball.
Yeah, Corey, I would do the same thing. Were you like playing with your favorite team? Were you like doing a weird fantasy draft? Did you create yourself if you could?
All of the above.
Okay, nice.
I think overall the fantasy draft was my favorite. Like I would just try and get as many players as I could.
Yeah. That
I liked, but yeah, any part of it, I was gonna do it.
Oh, that's so cool.
It was everything. Like I played baseball. I played baseball video games. Most of my clothes had baseballs on it, and then I had like truly like 1,000+ page book of stats that I would read. Like I would just read box scores from the World Series from like 1940. Like on.
My gosh! You know what? We kind of talked about it earlier on the show. I didn't do the series this summer, but this is our own little "Call Me by Your Ball Game" snippet that we're getting right here. This is awesome.
Yeah, I was way into baseball. And
who's your favorite team? I should know this. I'm sorry.
I mean, I don't watch baseball anymore.
Yes.
So whenever anybody asks, I will say my favorite team is the 1997 Seattle Mariners.
Awesome. Did Griffey win the MVP that year? Because they still had A-Rod and Griffey.
Yeah. I think 97, he didn't win, but I think he won 98. I can't remember exactly right now.
Yeah.
He won 97 or 98.
Okay.
For AL.
Either way, dude, those 90s Mariners teams, I'm sure you've been down like the YouTube rabbit hole of the sick videos made about some of those teams.
Oh, yeah.
Good stuff. I'm sorry to make us talk so much baseball, although you're probably fine with it.
Yeah.
That's
my fault.
No. Thank you. We kind of left off at like that sort of GameCube era.
Yes.
What was gaming a similar sort of hobby for you at the time? And what games do you remember from that era?
I mean, it was baseball and video games because it was like, yeah, that's what I was starting to say, and then I went off on the baseball tangent. But I like started getting like I had all the magazines, and like I remember reading the magazines, and it was GameCube and PS2 coming out, and every magazine was like GameCube is better. Like there was like rating both, and they were like, if you pick one, pick GameCube, and so I picked GameCube. and it was like I had SSX Tricky, I had Super Smash Brothers Melee, and then I think I had like one other game that I can't remember.
Yeah.
But then after a while, I was like, they're only releasing new like Mario games, and I don't want to just play Mario games all the time. And then the Xbox came out, and I went to my friend's house and played Halo, and I was like, I have to get an Xbox.
Yes. You and so many other kids have this in common.
Yeah, I was like, I can't just play Nintendo games anymore. I need some like a broader spectrum of games. And so I did Xbox from there.
Oh.
But then I bounced back and forth. Like I had 360, but then I think I went to PS3.
Okay.
And I think that was because of free like online playing.
Sure.
Like cuz Xbox you had to like pay for it and PS3 or something was free.
Yeah.
And then now I have a PS4 and I haven't gone into the new gen
yet
cuz I haven't been playing nearly as much as I used to the last like 5 years or so.
Yes, I think I knew you had a PS4. I want to say you've told me you played a lot of FIFA. Is that true?
I played a lot of FIFA. I haven't bought the last 2 FIFAs either because not because I didn't like them anymore. I was too addicted to them. And so I was like, I cannot buy another FIFA game because it was to the point where I was like playing Ultimate Team and I had the app and I was like all day just like trading cards on my phone until I could play. And then I would just play like games for hours. And I'm like, I'm doing this 24/7. I cannot do this anymore.
Yes, gosh, that's kind of a recurring thing that's happened on the show where people recognize a bit of like, I mean, you kind of put it in this term, like an addiction that they have. And so they have to like separate themselves from like a game or a console. That's not the first time I've heard something like this.
Yeah, it was too much. And so now I have Rocket League, which I like.
Yes.
And I play like not as much as I did FIFA. Like I like every couple of days I'll play a little bit. But much less addicting to me than FIFA was. So I'm like, that's fine. Yes. I need something to clear my head, but I don't want to like be on my phone thinking about it all day.
Yeah, absolutely. Just consuming your thoughts. That's great. Is Rocket League, would you say Rocket League is like the most recent game you've experienced, or have you tried anything out at your place or a friend's? I'm curious.
Honestly, Rocket League is the only game I've played for the past like maybe 2 years.
Gotcha.
I have Red Dead Redemption 2.
Uh-huh.
I have not opened it because I do think that if I start playing that game, it's going to consume my life for a couple months.
That is...
But I still have it.
Yes, but based on all that I've heard about that game, that sounds accurate to me. I've never touched it myself, and I think it seems just like an amazing world you can get lost in, so that makes sense.
Yeah, because I played the first one when I was in college, and it was like what I like have to be like 100% beat this game.
Yes.
So I know that if I start Red Dead Redemption 2, I'm going to feel that again. And it's been years, so it's like not even a new game anymore, but I still can't get rid of it because I'm like, I know that one day I'm going to play this game all the way through.
Yes. You just know yourself so well. You know what's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't have like any game console for a year because I think it was like right when I moved to LA and I was like, I'll sell this, I'll get a like little bit of money and then I'll just like not have a console. And then I realized that that's what I use to like de-stress. so I would be like at home and I'm just like, why am I so stressed out right now doing nothing? And I realized it's because I don't have a game to just like zone out to.
Yes.
So after like a year, I was like, I'm going to buy another console and at least have FIFA. And then FIFA became the stressful thing.
Oh, that's so funny how that happens. Interesting. That's cool. Really quick, you mentioned playing games in college. Did you go to Long Beach? Did you go to another school?
No, I went to Arizona State. Yeah, I went to Arizona State.
Oh, a Sun Devil we have.
Yes, yeah. Sun Devil with this guy, little pitchfork.
Oh, yes. That's what I associate this
Or
hand. This hand, I
maybe
always
it's that.
associate with the pitchfork. So
I think
it couldn't be anything
I
else.
think that's pitchfork.
For the viewers on YouTube are getting an exclusive, and the listeners at home will just have to wonder.
They'll have to wonder. I mean, they can guess. I would hope. So it was like Redlands, and then went to Arizona State for a couple years, and then after Arizona, moved to Long Beach for a couple years.
Gotcha.
And then LA, and I've been in LA since.
Okay, awesome. Was there any college gaming that you wanted to bring up today?
I mean, college gaming, really, the big one was Red Dead Redemption.
Oh, okay, cool.
It was like, I would play it, my friend would come home, watch me play Red Dead Redemption, and then when I was like gone, he would play his own story.
That's fun.
But I think that when I was most into games was like right at the end of high school and right after high school, and that was like a lot of Counter-Strike, Gears of War, Halo, like all of those like first-person shooter games, and then of course like it's like the zombie games like Left 4 Dead, and there's another one I can't even remember what it was called, and then Saints Row and Grand Theft Auto and Skate, one of my favorite games ever, and all the Tony Hawk games. That's what I played on PlayStation as a kid, Tony Hawk.
Hell yeah. We almost missed just like an incredibly meaningful game to a generation, but there it is.
Yeah. And then Need for Speed Underground. I played a lot of games that I forgot about.
Yeah. I mean, this is the type of conversation that I have with people where like memories just start being unearthed and games just like flood back to you once you sort of like let those other synapses connect. But dude, that's awesome. Before we go to break, is there any game, and you maybe just did this, is there any game you haven't mentioned from your history that you would just be so bummed out if you didn't talk about it?
I did. I played a lot of DDR.
Yes.
Growing up, like we had like the little slip pad that were dangerous to dance on. Yeah. But I'd say, number one game I haven't mentioned yet, and it's the reason I'm a drummer, is Rock Band.
Dude, you are actually a product of the game to instrument pipeline?
Yeah. I always wanted to drum, never did. Got Rock Band, got good at it. All my friends started playing like acoustic guitar, and I was like, I'm going to play drums. I know how to play drums.
Dude, that's so sick. Did you get like a drum set? Was that a whole conversation with your parents? Like, how'd this go?
It was a weird time in my life where I had started going to college, but not Arizona State. It was Brooks Institute, which was a film school, and I started going to Brooks, but dropped out without telling my parents, and then like went back to Redlands, and was like living with my friends because they had a place. And while I was there, like before I moved back in with my parents after like telling them, I bought a drum set at their place, and they were like, you can't have this here. And I was like, it's not going to be set up. It's just boxes. And then I'm going to move and set it up when I move back home.
Yes.
And so like when I moved back home after dropping out from college, I was like, hey, I have a drum set. Let's set it up in my room. And then just was like, I was playing drums in my house after dropping out of college. And I'm sure my mom loved it.
Dude, that is so great. And like, I mean, I've known you're a drummer for a long time, but that little story is so good.
Yeah, it was leftover money from dropping out of college because I was like, I didn't spend all my loan money, so I can buy drums now.
Yeah, Mom, this drum kit is Psychology 101 and PE or whatever. Do you do PE in college? I don't know.
Just that college PE class.
Yeah. Wow, I'm so glad I asked if you had a little extra to share. Cory, that's awesome. And thanks for just sharing your history with games in general. We're going to go ahead and, finally take that quick break. And when we come back, we'll get into all things Tekken 3. So I'll see you on the other side. Welcome back to Call Me by Your Game. Connor McCabe returning for the second half of this episode, back with our esteemed Cory Webster. Cory, hello.
Hello, I'm back.
here we go. We're finally going to get into the main event today to discuss Tekken 3. So, Cory, like I told you before the podcast, I'm going to just kind of set the table for the listener, tell them about what this game is. And I know you said you didn't have any extra stuff to share context-wise, but if you want to jump in, you got the green light.
All right.
But without further ado, I'll lead us into it. Tekken 3 is the third entry in the Tekken fighting game series. It was released to the arcades first in 1997 before being ported to the PlayStation in 1998 around the world. There are different release dates depending on the region, but every home console release was in that same year. The arcade version of the game was also released in 2005 for the PlayStation 2 as part of Tekken 5's Arcade History Mode. The game was also re-released as a part of Sony's PlayStation Classic. So actually, I didn't realize this, but I own this game on the PlayStation Classic. Do you know those little mini consoles they started releasing?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
Dude, they are... Well, the funny thing is the PlayStation one is... I don't need to get into all the details. It kind of sucks overall, but they are cool and they are really hard to find now because they didn't sell that many of them because they didn't sell very well for the most part. And now they're like collector's items. So if you look them up on eBay, they'll be way too much money, but it was on the PS Classic. Tekken 3 features a largely new cast of characters, including the debut of several now staple characters such as, and forgive me, Jin, Ling, Brian, Eddie, Hwoarang, and Julia. As you notice, I skipped a lot of last names there. With a total of 23 characters, the home version includes a new beat-em-up mode called Tekken Force and the bonus Tekken Ball mode, which I have a fun fact, some details about that later in the episode.
Okay.
The game was a major hit for both arcades and consoles, selling 35,000 arcade units and 8.36 million PlayStation copies worldwide, making Tekken 3 the fifth best-selling original PlayStation game. Since its release, Tekken 3 has been cited as one of not just the greatest fighting games of all time, but one of the greatest games ever. It was followed in the series by Tekken Tag Tournament, and the direct sequel, Tekken 4, was released in 2001. And I'll say, if anybody who is tuning into this episode because they are a Tekken fan, I recommend you go check out Video Games, a Comedy Show, because at the beginning of this year, Jeremy did a few episodes called Every Tekken Ever, where him and his friend Alex played every Tekken game for a half hour and talked about all of them. So if people haven't got enough Tekken,
I need to check that out.
I think you might like it. Or you might be like, this is unlistenable. Well, the first episode... The first episode's only video. I would say only watch the video because you can see them playing. But because they just released an audio episode of them just talking about what's happening on screen, but they don't. Anyway, what were you going to say? I kind of cut you off.
Oh, no, I was cutting you off. We were cutting each other off. I was saying I didn't not watch like a 2-hour playthrough of Tekken 3 today before this podcast.
Watch. I know what that means.
I think that I might be interested in this.
Okay, very cool. That is just such a thing I do. Cory, I know. Was there anything you want to share about the game that, like a detail that I haven't shared yet?
I mean, not that pops into my head, except that I don't remember how I first heard about this game.
Okay, cool.
I just remember having it.
Yes.
When I had a PlayStation.
That's awesome. So that gets us into your personal history with the game, which is it begins in sort of a mysterious way. You had the game on your PlayStation, and I assume you had like the original PlayStation release, not like the PS1, the smaller version.
I had both. It started with the original PlayStation until it burned out.
Yeah.
One day. But I know I liked Mortal Kombat. So I imagine that when I was like reading magazines or whatever, they were like, here's this fighting game that people like. And I didn't know Tekken 1 or Tekken 2. But I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And then all I remember is just playing it all the time.
That's awesome. Well, why don't we kind of start there then? Like, what do you remember enjoying about this game?
I mean, I know like any fighting game, especially as a kid, just started as like button mashing fighting all the time. And it was fun even then. And then just like once you get into it and you start learning the combos, like this game was they had so much going on.
Yeah.
There's so much going on in this game that it's just like it felt like it just kept going, whereas most fighting games kind of feel like you just like fight the same people over and over, and this like there's so much story to this game.
Yes,
I mean, especially coming in on the third one, I was just like, I don't know how to keep up with all this.
Yeah, should I know what's going on? I mean, look, this is a series I do not have a lot of experience with, but I do know that it has like crazy lore. Jeremy and our friend Alex Gaskin years ago also did an episode just talking about how insane the Tekken lore is and doing their best to like sort of explain to themselves and the listener like what has happened in the series narratively.
Yeah.
So there's that huge thing about this series, but also one thing I realized I didn't touch on in the history and context is that this differs from I think what a lot of us might think of as fighting games, which is like, you know, side by side, two characters fighting like a Street Fighter or a Mortal Kombat. Tekken functions like Virtua Fighter and Soul Calibur, where there's another axis where like you not just move left to right and up and down, like if you jump, but you can move like in a 3D space essentially.
Yes. Like it can rotate a little bit.
Yeah, so I wonder if that like played into why, not just like the lore of why it feels like there's so much for you, but like the game, like opening up a whole new access of dimensionality feels like it can just open your mind.
And there's just so many, like every character for the most part has like a different fighting style. Mm-hmm. There's like base, like all like real fighting styles that it just introduced you to. Like I know like the guy that I for a long time used, Eddie Gordo, who does like capoeira, which because of him I like knew what that was. And then Bob's Burgers did an episode and I was like, I know that.
Really? Oh my gosh.
But he is, as a button masher, I think the best player in any fighting game ever.
Yeah. What was it about that? Do you remember?
His whole thing is like he's mostly low. So if you're button mashing, basically from what I remember is like if you hold down and you're just hitting buttons, he will just start like spinning around, like kicking low and like flip, like you can't hit him because he's constantly hitting you.
Yeah, he's just like a spinning top almost.
Yes. And then I know at one point my sister, when I would get her to play with me, she's like, you can't use him anymore because I can't beat you when you use him. And I was like, all right.
You found the way to like become invincible with Eddie Gordo.
Yeah. But after that though, I think I started like actually learning how to play the game, and there's so many like good characters in this game that I liked using, like more than any game I remember that had like multiple characters. One I feel like has the most like go-to characters for me.
Oh, cool.
Like
ones that you're comfortable using or that you just like the aesthetics of?
Yes, like comfortable using. Like I would like learn the combos and I liked them. Like Jin was like the first guy after Eddie I think I started using. And then Law is very cool, who's basically just like Bruce Lee and does like backflips and all this stuff. And then Paul I remember using because he had one very strong punch that if you could like get the space and time to do it, it basically is like almost a one-hit knockout.
Oh my gosh.
And there's just so many, like every character looking at, like I have the character pulled up right now and I'm like, I don't know if there's a character I didn't like using there.
Yeah, like so it sounds like you must have spent a lot of time with this game if you not only tried everyone, but like got comfortable with them.
Yes. I remember because it was a game that was like I would force as many people as I could to play with me, but if they didn't, I was just playing.
Yeah.
Like I did Tekken ball mode. I did the like side game. I forget what those are called. Like, where you're kind of like when you're like walking through. Yeah, I think Tekken Force.
Yeah.
Where it's like kind of the walkthrough fighter game, like old school arcade style.
Oh sure, yes.
And then unlocked
the beat 'em up version. Yes,
the beat 'em up. Yeah. I would like just back and forth through all those. Tekken Ball, watching the videos today, I was like not as like exciting as I remember, but I like
Yes.
definitely remembered playing it. And it's how you get Gone, the little dinosaur.
Yes. Who
which-
truly looks... there are some characters in this game that look out of place. Gon might be the one who looks the most out of place.
100%.
Yeah.
I believe he's from a different thing. Mm-hmm. But they like added him to the game.
Yes, in doing research for this episode and trying to find some interesting facts to share with you later, I don't have one about Gon, but they talked about him in this video, this great YouTube channel that if you just want to go down rabbit holes, Corey, with games you like, check out Did You Know Gaming? Great channel, but they did one on the whole Tekken series, which you'll notice a fact of mine is featured in that episode. Okay. But Gon, it was from like a manga or something that they licensed just for Tekken 3, I want to say.
That's so wild. He doesn't fit in with this game.
No, yeah. Well, it's funny because there's like, there's a bunch of standout characters visually. Like, I think the one that I remember the most is King, the one that has like a leopard head.
Yes.
Is it a leopard? Do you know?
I think it's a leopard or a jaguar. Okay. I forget which one. But yeah, he's like a wrestler.
Yeah.
So he had like insane combos. That was one that took a long time for me to get, but he is honestly one of the best players in the game if you can get close to the other person, because he has insanely long combos.
That's cool.
So once you start one, it's really easy to link them up, and they can't do anything about it.
Dang. Well, it's so cool to hear. Like, I'm not a big fighting game aficionado, but that is really, it makes me happy to hear that like the play styles feel distinct based on the character, and that they like actually not just feel distinct, but that it's something that you felt like it was a new tool to master almost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Dude, that's cool. What did you have like a favorite mode in this game that you would play, or did you just play it so much that you liked every aspect of it?
I mean, I think I just liked every aspect, but I'm sure I was mostly doing the like fight through like the main mode of just like fighting through everybody, or just like one-off fights just for fun.
Yeah, like a little exhibition match sort of.
Yeah. I think for a while I probably got into Tekken Ball, and then I was like, once you're good at it, you're just like, I don't know. There's not much more to it. Yeah.
That's so good. We've talked about, both the different fighting styles and the characters and the lore. Is there another like aspect, whether it's a feature or or another just general aspect like music or something that you liked about this game?
Oh, the music is incredible. I definitely know that it's like not the full album, but the like disc itself played, I think, one song if you put it in a CD player. But it's like all just like industrial, like techno, which I love. Yeah. And it reminds me kind of, I guess not the game as much, but the like Mortal Kombat movie soundtrack.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Mortal Kombat Annihilation movie soundtrack, I like listen to a ton.
Okay. That's so good. Even you just bringing up the little factoid about the disc playing a song if you put it in a CD player. This was such a fun era of PlayStation games doing that occasionally, but also you being able to put in like an actual music CD in your PlayStation and then take it out, put your game disc in and listen to music while you play a game. Mm-hmm. Just, I don't know if that's something a feature you ever toyed with.
I'm sure I did. I don't remember it on PS1.
Yeah. Maybe it was
as much, but maybe later. But I know like PS2, you can put music on it and it was like, just play music. It was great.
I know that the PS1 also functioned as a CD player, but I may be confusing that feature, the other feature, with a later console. But Corey, I want to dive into a little bit more of the context, since we've got so many of the aspects of the game you like that we've touched on. Let's start by doing some scene painting. Can you describe to me the room in the house that where your PlayStation was set up and just like paint that scene for me.
100%. So it was like couch on one wall, basically fills the whole wall up, and then TV across.
Okay.
Right underneath it was a PlayStation. To the right of that TV was our home computer, the huge loud tower.
Yes.
And then in between the couch and that computer, there was like a bookshelf.
Okay.
On the other side of the room was the kitchen. And then next to the TV on the opposite side of the computer was a rabbit cage.
Oh, a rabbit
so when I
cage.
picture playing PlayStation, that's the room that I
Yeah,
imagine.
so this is like a big living room in your house.
Yes, big living room. Right on the other side of that was my bedroom,
Okay.
which I had the only downstairs bedroom.
All
Everybody
right.
else was upstairs. So I would sneak out and play
I was
video
going
games
to say,
at
imagine
night.
that would be clutch.
Yeah. I just had to not click too loud, but I think I got away with it most of the time, I think.
Yes, that's so good. Was it like a carpeted floor? Was it hardwood?
Carpeted. It was carpeted floor, tile kitchen.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just love these little details. So it's like one of my favorite things to make people do on the show. So thank you. So now that we're sort of like in that headspace of like where you were playing it, do you have any broad or specific memories when you used to play this game?
Not any specific ones from like this game. I have one memory of at one point I like left a game out and somehow my sister went to go sit at the computer and it was underneath the chair leg and it like shattered the disc.
Oh, devastating. Oh.
Yeah, and I was like, I can't remember exactly what game that was. It could have been Tekken 3, but I remember being so sad about that because it was like, I can't play this game anymore. And it was like, we're so close to the console that I just like left it out.
Oh.
And that's my fault.
I know it's tough as a kid when you have to learn lessons about like your belongings like that. I think,
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever had a disc that broke, but definitely like had stuff happen to like a toy or actually I was thinking about this. This is perfect. I was just thinking about this the other day. I remember, I used to go to this summer camp growing up, like this sleepaway camp for like 4 or 5 days over the summer. And I think when I was like, maybe it was like 11 or 10 years old, I had my first like the MLB Pro caps that are fitted, that have like the logo on the back and then like nice stitching with the lettering. So for whatever reason, like once I became a certain age and realized that's what the pros wear, kind of like a lot of kids, I was like, I want that. So I had my red Cardinals hat that I wore every day, like when I wasn't in school, including at this camp. And I remember, like, I think it was at the pool, because we had a pool at the camp. I brought it to the pool one day, and I don't know if someone put it in the pool or if it got splashed, but I remember a counselor having to, like, talk me down because it had gotten so wet that, like, the part of the, like, the stitching was kind of coming off the, like, whatever material sticks out to make the logo sort of 3D.
Yeah.
I was inconsolable. And so that would like probably be the closest thing like that to me. And so from then on, I was like so precious about what I took to the pool.
Yeah. It just takes one thing.
Yes.
One important thing. And you're just like, never again.
Yeah. Almost like it's kind of like a touch the stove lesson. I don't think that's what they call it, but like you just kind of have to learn.
Yeah.
Oh, that's heartbreaking. You may have, I know you said you played this game a lot by yourself. Was this a game that friends or like your older sister played with you too?
I know my older sister played a little bit. And then I had a couple friends that would come over and play, but for the most part, I don't think anybody I played video games with a lot liked fighting games.
Yes.
As much as I did. So, like, they would come over and play. We'd play Super Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
Or, like, by the time I got the GameCube. And then, like, that was more fun as a group.
Cool.
Than just me probably beating everybody at Tekken.
Yeah, especially if they don't have it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, context-wise too, I know we don't have so many specific memories. What would your life have been like at the time? Like, what things would you have been doing? Are there any like details you can fill in for me about like little Cory at this time?
Oh yeah, I mean, it really was baseball.
Yeah,
it was like, especially like 1998, midst of the home run race,
dude.
like, and then we like this house. We moved in, and like the first day, this kid named Wesley came over, and they like with his parents, and they were just like, "Hi, welcome to the neighborhood." And he was wearing a Dodger shirt, and I was like, "Do you like baseball?" And he was like, "Kind of." And then I basically got him and his brother obsessed with baseball. So we would like go to the end of the cul-de-sac and like hit tennis balls around and just like hang out outside all the time. Mostly baseball, and then if it wasn't baseball, we were playing video games, or we also loved Beanie Babies.
Yes,
big into Beanie Babies, just creating whole worlds and stories.
Yes,
like,
dude.
In my room,
dude, they're just another action figure.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. Cory, you have you've shared so many fun details, whether it be from your life or about your time with this game. Are there any details from either one, game or sort of life context, that you haven't shared that you'd like to bring up today?
I mean, that's like mostly it. Besides, now I don't really watch baseball, but now I'm equally obsessed with soccer.
Yes, yeah. Well, don't you all have season tickets to one of the teams down here?
There's season tickets to Angel City.
Yes.
I go to a lot of LAFC games.
Yes.
And then I watch every Liverpool game.
Yes.
Basically. Those are my main teams.
Okay, cool. Yeah, just same but different now. That's so cool though. Well, before we do move on to the post-show segments that I have for you, will you do me a favor and just like put a bow on whatever place Tekken 3 held for you?
I mean, for as long as I haven't played that game, it's still in my head as like possibly the greatest game of all time. And like watching the videos back today, it still looks really good for like a 1998 game.
Yeah.
Like it truly feels like a groundbreaking game that somehow ended up in my hands, and like I'm so glad it did. And I'm like, I played future Tekken games. They were all good. This game still is like the one that I think of as being just the best. And
awesome.
I think the fact that I did have it to like just play by myself when I was bored, I think made my life just better.
Dude.
Just because I could just like sit down and like do something I enjoyed by myself, which is one of my favorite things.
Yeah. Dude, well, that rules. Again, thank you so much for bringing on this game to discuss with me today. Let's get into the post-show segments, though. The first of which, Cory, is the Fact Me by Your Game segment. And I'm just going to share a couple of fun facts with you about Tekken 3. How about that?
I'm into that.
So the first of which, I sourced this fact from the Tekken fandom wiki, and I have it titled, Kazuya, Where Are Ya? Now, Tekken 3 has the distinction of being the only game in the entire series where Kazuya Mishima is not a playable character. Kazuya being like maybe, arguably the most iconic player from the franchise in general. Kazuya is in the most recent Smash Brothers game. Like, incredibly, I feel like if people saw Kazuya, they'd recognize him because of his like haircut. But despite this sad fact, Kazuya still appears in the game's opening cutscene for arcades, and you might, maybe you'll remember this since Eddie Gordo is your guy, but in Eddie Gordo's ending, there's a photo that Kazuya appears in.
Mm-hmm.
So, Kazuya, not a playable character, but not fully lost.
Yes.
The second fun fact, this one does come from Did You Know Gaming, and again, if I don't send you that video, if you just Google Tekken Did You Know, it'll hop up on YouTube. I have this titled Tekken Ball's Unlikely Existence. Finally going to get that fun fact about Tekken Ball. This side game was actually introduced in Tekken 3, and it was originally designed just as a simulation to help practice air juggling, which is, a technique you can do in the game to keep knocking your opponent in the air. Series developer Katsuhiro Hirata stated that the original idea was just to hit the ball and to juggle it into a basket, I guess sort of reminiscent of basketball. But for some reason, the prototype didn't quite do what Hirata had hoped for. And so he and a small team of 2 other developers worked on this prototype and developed it into the more volleyball-like mini game that you know today, which is, included in the game where you're really, you can describe it for us, but you're just like hitting the ball in the air and then striking it at your opponent.
Yeah, there's like a big ball with like pretty low gravity. Yeah. And you just kind of like, there's a line in the middle that you can't cross and they can't cross, and you are just trying to hit it into them or let it touch the ground. Yeah. It's very, and I believe they like developed that game in future Tekkens as well into like a more volleyball like game.
Oh, that's cool.
I'm pretty sure, but maybe I'm wrong. I know Dead or Alive has volleyball, but that's a whole different thing.
Yes, that's
but I
interesting.
do think Tekken has it still.
Okay. Yeah. Very fun. Well, the sort of end to this thing is that this like mini game led Hirata to experiment with similar mini game ideas in future Tekken games, including a pinball mini game. I actually don't know if that ever came out, but this ultimately led to Tekken Bowling, which was included in Tekken Tag Tournament. Did you know about this?
I did not know about that. Tekken Tag, I think, is my least favorite Tekken.
Okay, there we go.
But I might like Tekken Bowling.
Yeah, I wonder if it's fun. Like, it seems like it could be one of those mini games in a bigger video game that is either really fun or just not fun at all.
Yeah, just a waste.
Yeah, but that'll do it for the fun facts segment of the episode, and I'll lead us into the final one, the game recommendations. Now, Cory, this segment is my one forced tie-in to the movie Call Me By Your Name, where I'm going to treat Tekken 3 like your passionate summer fling that you meet in Italy. But ultimately, that's not going to work out, so I'm going to try to help you get over the heartbreak by introducing you to 3 other potential flings. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
Okay. They all have a little something in common, which I'll get into now. The first of which is if you love this 3D fighting format, you love that you're moving on all 3 axes, but you want to play one that predates this, I'll recommend a game called Soul Blade, which was the precursor to Soul Calibur. Do you know the Soul Calibur series?
I do, but I do not know Soul Blade.
Soul Blade was just like a earlier version that predates it. But kind of from this similar era. I've only played Soul Calibur 2, but I loved it on the GameCube because it had Link as a playable character.
Yes.
And that was sick. So that's your first one. Is if what you took away from this game was, if your experience was like mine, which now I've heard from you, it's completely different. I only ever played this game at a sleepover one time in 2nd grade. So if this game to you is like a sleepover game, I'll recommend another great sleepover game, Crash Team Racing. Did you ever play Crash Bandicoot's racing game?
I did. A big Crash Bandicoot family. So Crash Team Racing, incredible.
So good. I kind of, since you were a PlayStation kid, I kind of thought there was a chance you may have played it. Lastly, I kind of highlighted a pretty big character in the series earlier, King, who we're pretty confident that the animal head he has for a head for his human body is a leopard. If your takeaway from this game, Cory, is he just like little kitty cats, then I'm going to recommend to you a new game that came out this year called Little Kitty, Big City.
Okay.
This sounds great. This is a game that actually did review very, very well, and I think it's just kind of like cutesy baby game where you play as a little kitty in a big city. So if cats are your thing, that's your recommendation for this one.
Sounds good.
Awesome. So
I love cats.
There we go. To recap your 3 recs, we've got Soul Blade, Crash Team Racing, and Little Kitty, Big City. That'll do it for the Rex, and that'll bring us to the end of the podcast. So before we go and plug whatever we want, Cory, dude, thanks again for taking the time to do this. This was so much fun having you on the pod.
I mean, it was great. I could have gone on for another hour.
Hey,
Yes, there's so much to this game.
truly. Well, I love it, dude. On your way out, what do you want to plug? Where do you want the listeners to find you on the internet?
I mean, I have nothing of that I know the date of yet, but I would say follow me on Instagram at Cory Webster, Cory. There's no E in my first name. And I'm sure if something happens, I'll post it there. Or the aforementioned TikTok, Cory.Webster, where if there's new songs, they'll go on there. They'll go on my Instagram. Instagram, I will also promote improv shows, and if any music is coming out or shows happening, it'll be on my Instagram.
Awesome. Well, great. Well, I'll put links to the show notes so people can find that quite easily. Do you know, I'm putting you on the spot here, do you know what your next sort of sports song will be?
I do. I currently am editing the video for, the song has been done since November. It's been way too long. But I'm editing the video for the 5 consecutive Dodgers Rookies of the Year.
Oh my gosh. Is Mike Piazza part of that?
Yes. It is
God,
Mike
else?
Piazza, Eric Karros, Raul Mondesi, Hideo Nomo, and Todd Hollandsworth.
I'm just gonna eat this up. I can't wait.
Incredibly specific.
Yes, Cory. I'm just juicing these exclusives out of you today. I love that. I can't wait. Folks, definitely go follow Cory on Instagram and TikTok. But that being the end of your plugs, I'll close us out with some plugs of my own. So The cover art for Call Me By Your Game is done by the great artist Glenn J. And you can find him and his other great work on Instagram at Glenn with 2 N's .jay. This show is edited, produced, and the original music that you hear throughout is done by Jeremy Schmidt, who I've referenced on the podcast already. If you want to give him a thank you for the hard work he puts into my show, you should definitely check out his podcast, Video Games, a comedy show, wherever you get yours. You can follow the show all over social media on Instagram, Blue Sky, Twitter, TikTok. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter and all that as well. I'm on Twitch at twitch.tv/consiscool69. Hopefully, by the time this episode comes out, pretty soon after that, I'm hopefully going to be streaming Psychonauts 2. I'm doing a big episode for our Patreon and for YouTube on the sequel to Psychonauts. So I'm planning to play it on stream. So if you're listening to this, you like the game or you want to come watch me, do that. Other than that, 2 big ways you can support the show is by sharing the show with a friend. If you liked this and you liked the way I talk to people about video games, please share this podcast with a friend. And then also, if you're really just craving more podcast episodes, you've got to check us out on Patreon. We're over at patreon.com/super NPC Radio, where we just have a ton of bonus video game podcasts for you that come out every week. We do a games club, which comes out at the $5 tier and above. So every single week, we release a new episode covering a game in a book club format. We're currently playing Hollow Knight. And actually, by the time this episode comes out, we're going to be on the forefront of our next election. The theme, folks, is baby games. So if you're a patron at the $1 tier and up, you can vote on whatever games we end up nominating for that. It's kind of a vague or like a big open format. I don't know what it's going to mean, whether it's really easy games or games that have babies in them, but that's our next one. And I do a bunch of bonus crap there too. You can find it. But that'll do it for this episode of Call Me By Your Game. We will see you on the next one.